What do you think this noise is? Could you imagine living with it? I want to talk to you about wind turbines. I'm not totally opposed to all of them, and I'm not a climate change denier, so this film may not be quite what you think. I think it's time to look at what happens when you have too many wind turbines concentrated in one area. So the focus of this film will be Cumbria. You may be surprised at what you see. Cumbria is a popular holiday destination, home to the Lake District National Park, home to the western end of Hadrian's Wall World Heritage Site, and home to the Solway Coast area of outstanding natural beauty. It is a mostly rural county, much loved by those who are privileged to live in it and by thousands of visitors who come each year. Although the government's planning guidance, the National Planning Policy Framework, states that every community in the UK must accept its share of the responsibility for renewable energy development, the Lake District and other designated areas are quite rightly protected from intrusive structures such as large wind turbines. Applications for wind turbines have therefore been funnelled into non-designated parts of Cumbria, particularly on the western side. The stunning beauty of the Lake District does not come to a dead stop at the border of the national park, but continues onto the Solway Plain and the areas covered by Allerdale, Eden and Copeland district councils. These are beautiful, cherished areas, the gateways to the national park. But they are beginning to lose their character, and fast. During 2012, Allerdale Borough Council received 51 wind turbine applications and 58 pre-application requests. In 2013, there were 33 applications and 49 pre-application requests. Allerdale already hosts wind farms consisting of multiple turbines at Great Orton, Windscales, Tallentire, West Newton, Hellrig, High Pow, Worrells Hill and along the coast at Flimby. There are also dozens of single turbines. Unfortunately, it is very seldom that the council receives an application for a genuinely small farm-scale turbine. People tend not to object to 15-metre turbines, but the majority of applications which have come forward are for turbines typically ranging from 25 to 80 metres. On the wind farms, the turbines can be up to 125 metres. According to the Government Department of Energy and Climate Change, a small turbine measures about 15 metres to the hub or tip. You can see from the diagram that it isn't a particularly small structure, but there are many people in Cumbria who would happily accept living close to a 15-metre wind turbine if they could have that instead of this. High Power Wind Farm, 3 95-metre wind turbines operated by a company known as REG, and the possibility of more to come.
We've lived here about 12 years now, and we were drawn primarily to this lovely spot by the view. Clearly the turbines weren't there when we moved in, but it's the view that makes this place, and we find that everybody who comes to see us, whether they're delivering something, whether they're visiting, whatever it might be, everybody comments on the view. On a good day you can see 30-40 miles right up into Scotland.
And bearing in mind that you are level with the blade tips of the machines, can you tell us what your experience of noise is like?
When it's usually quieter, if the wind is quieter, we hear more noise from the turbines. It seems to come up the hill to us, and it's very intrusive indeed.
So when you want to enjoy your garden and the privacy of your house, it's ever present, it's something you're always aware of?
Yes it is, and sometimes inside the house as well. Yeah, we have the windows open a lot in the summer, and of course at that time we can hear the noise quite plainly inside, yes.
Noise can be a terrible problem for those living near wind farms and large single turbines. Developers must follow guidance known as ETSU R 1997, which is supposed to limit noise produced by wind turbines to an acceptable level. ETSU is the guidance recognised by the government. But Etsu was produced in 1997 by renewable energy developers and others with a vested interest in wind energy. Since then, a whole new generation of much bigger wind turbines has emerged, and although there have been some adjustments and additions to Etsu, many people find that it doesn't provide an effective safeguard against intrusive turbine noise. Graham's house is level with the blade tips of the high-power turbines. The same turbines stand in a line directly in front of John's house. Can you hear them all the time?
Most of the time. The turbines are actually worst at the minute they're facing sort of southwest, which isn't the worst point. They're actually worst when they're facing you. So if the turbines are looking straight at you on a southeasterly wind, the noise seems to bounce off them.
Tallentire Wind Farm. 6 100-metre turbines erected by Hertfordshire-based company RES. And Ben has most of them in plain view from the back of his house, even during the spring and summer when the trees and bushes are in full leaf. Do you suffer from noise from the turbines?
We do, and we do on occasions when it's a south wind, southeasterly wind and low to medium wind speeds. High wind speeds aren't a problem, and if the wind's in other directions, it's not a problem. And so whilst one doesn't like them being there, one can put up with them, but we should not have to put up with the level of noise that we put up with in those low wind conditions. We've complained to RES directly, and we've also complained to Allerdale about that. We did that at a number of occasions last year, and a noise survey was done, and they have said that they fall within the Etsu regulations. However, there were some tonal frequencies that were over and above the ideal limits, and they had taken or take mitigation measures to reduce those. Those are still there, and the noise monitoring continues. There's a noise meter in the garden next door to us, and
So a lot of people in the village had to complain about noise.
a lot of people do complain and continue to complain about noise. And what RES are doing now is, in low wind conditions, they turn the turbines off. However, recently, in the last couple of months, they've been, what I would say, pushing the boundaries and trying to run them again. And so we've been forced to complain to say that we are being affected by noise again.
People who are unfortunate enough to live close to large turbines can also experience visual disturbance and a phenomenon known as shadow flicker, which occurs at particular times of the year when the position of the sun is behind the blades.
Right, well, shadow flicker, it happens in midsummer, sort of end of May. It starts as the sun moves round, it sets behind the turbines, and as the sun's setting behind it, yeah, we get a flashing similar to a strobe light.
The shadow flicker was something that we brought up and was raised by a number of people within the village before the construction of the wind farm, and we said that we would suffer from shadow flicker. However, RES refused to do the calculation because shadow flicker can be calculated as to whether property is going to be affected by it or not, and when those times of day that it will be affected by it. RES refused to carry out that calculation until somebody was affected by it. It took them 2 weeks to respond with a mitigation plan in place, and in the meantime there was a Sunday morning when it took place. There were videos posted on, sent to RES with shadow flicker happening on this Sunday morning, and it was described as potential shadow flicker.
3 107-metre turbines have recently been installed by a company called Broadview Energy outside the village of West Newton. Alan has certainly got a broad view of them from his living room area.
Well, they give me a headache because basically when I sit watching the television, I've got a turbine in my vision next to the TV set, and even if I pull a curtain across, which I don't feel we should have to, There's another one in one of the other panes of the patio doors in my peripheral vision. And if I sit forward, the third one is in vision as well. They're completely across the whole width of our view from our living room now.
As well as the problems which are associated with living near wind farms, there is the stress which is often caused when a neighbour applies to put a large wind turbine near you. This is the idyllic village of Ainstable in the district of Eden. The local community is reeling at the prospect of a 77-metre wind turbine which a landowner has just applied for. There is no question that it would dominate this village.
Well, we first heard about it only really about 5 weeks ago.
And what's been your experience since then? What's it been like?
Oh, it's been an appalling effect on my life personally and the lives of so many in this community. I mean, suddenly you're faced by just monstrous assault on your lifestyle here. You thought you'd come to a nice quiet place with good views, good place to bring up children, in one of the most lovely parts of the Eden Valley. And suddenly one person can do this to a whole community. It creates stress, worry, it creates sleepless nights, and we know now, having seen the application and the reports of his consultants, just how devious, frankly, people can be to actually portray something as serious as this as though it was actually nothing much.
So it's put your community under a great deal of stress.
Enormous amount of
And are
stress.
people worried about their own livelihoods?
Well, they are indeed, yes. Yeah, those running sort of local businesses, the hotel over there, and there's a caravan site down there, and the local bed and breakfasts. They worry, people won't come to choose to have their weddings here. They won't choose to stay here if this ugly, great turbine is placed on the hillside right above our village.
How big is the turbine going to be?
77 metres high, that is 250 feet. It's an enormous structure, and it's going to break right through up into the sky, and it's going to be visible from just about every direction.
And it would dominate the village, wouldn't it?
It will indeed, yes. As you walk around the quiet country lanes here, which people do, your view at present, uninterrupted, of Blencathra, the Lakeland Hills, will have this great structure obstructing your view, and it's just going to be devastating. And it's not as though it's just us slightly older, retired people who are feeling as strongly as this. It's young people with families, it's people who've lived here for generations. It's people who are farmers who believe that farming is about raising animals, not generating vast income for themselves, for an individual from a turbine company.
It's a very particular interpretation of farm diversification, isn't it, putting a turbine
It certainly is, and I know it runs right against what many farming folk around here think, and so many families here are absolutely horrified by this proposal. They cannot understand how one man could do this to them and all around them.